look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Content is king. So if you have some content you need created, hit up iopvideo.com. Video production, podcasting, you name it, we can do it. iopvideo.com. We make things look pretty.
Welcome to the voice party, everybody! Oh my God! Oh my God! It's our favorite time of the year. It's the Halloween season. And we've been building up to this moment all October, and it's finally here. The main event. We got a very special guest. Longtime listeners probably remember this dude. New-time listeners, strap in. It's gonna be a ride. We got the one and only Sinister Intruder, horrorcore musician extraordinaire. He's given us such amazing songs like "Masturbate to the Flag," "I Fuck Your Dead Body," and my personal favorite, "All Rapists Must Die." I love songs with a positive message. Sinister Intruder, welcome to the voice party. Woo!
Thank you. I know where you live.
he knows where I live too.
I do.
Yeah, fucking A. Come over, baby. Anytime.
You want me to bring anything? Chips, condoms,
ice picks,
a machete.
All of the
You know what, dude? We like I said, we were scrambling to find someone with some horror stories or something scary that's paranormal. I was like, who might have someone that someone that may know who I'm looking for. I thought of you, and then it was like, wait, you're the perfect person for this. I don't need you to find me anybody.
That's true.
So,
I do have quite a few fun, interesting stories.
Oh, which are scary and is perfect for Halloween.
I agree.
So, we've hung out after that podcast episode. You live right down the street from the Voice Party Studios, and we shared. That's what I'm calling it now. Instead of calling it my little 1-bedroom apartment thing, it's a Voice Party Studio. It sounds more honorable. Anyways,
that's what it says on Google Maps. Voice Party Studios.
Voice Parties, yeah. So, we had a great conversation. You remember that day where we went for that long walk and I almost died?
Yeah, I remember that.
We had a great conversation about the paranormal, and I thought it would be great for you to share some interesting paranormal stories right on Halloween week, sir.
I love talking about paranormal stuff, and not only from my own experiences, but from people around me and things that everyone has experienced, whether or not there's a rational explanation behind it or whether this is just some spooky shit. There's plenty to talk about. And whether you want me to tell, because I have lists. I have a list of stories. And I have a list of stories that are from my own experiences and people that I know, and a list of just some things that I know of, because I didn't know how deep we were getting and what experiences you wanted to hear or what stories were worth talking about on this podcast for Halloween. I'm prepared.
That's very considerate of you.
Very considerate, and I'm kind of frightened now. But what do you guys think? I'll let you guys.
Hey, if you have any, speaking as like a horror content creator, I feel like I'm in a space where I can say that. There is nothing that is too disturbing, nothing that is too taboo, because this is a Halloween episode of The Voice Party, where half of the regular cast tell spooky stories. Give us your best, or by some interpretation, your worst. Whatever you got.
There's a story that I particularly have wanted to tell. It doesn't involve me, but it involves members of my family. However, I'm going to, if I tell this story, I'm going to have to change the names of the people involved.
To protect the innocent.
Yeah,
Dun, da, da,
I have
dun,
I
da,
have
dun,
wanted
da,
to just use this story and tell people the story to like there's a few YouTubers out there and such that always request, hey, send in your paranormal stories, and I've always wanted to use this, but for the main person who this involves, the main individual, he has said he has declined to talk about it forever. But there's two other people involved in the story that were there, witnessed firsthand what was going on, and they were the ones that told me the story. I still have yet to get it from the main person who was involved, and I don't think that they would be comfortable with me name dropping them. So I'm just going to change the names in this story, but this has been a sort of legend within my own family. Like, it's something that we joke about and we reference and we look back on and kind of say, hey, remember when that happened? And people will laugh about it. But people only say that when the main person involved is not in the room. Anyways, I also think it's appropriate to start off by saying this may or may not be a Bigfoot story.
Oh.
I say may or may not because Bigfoot story is kind of like what we shorthand it because we don't know what it was. Nobody really knows, but like Bigfoot's just kind of like what we guess that it is. So I'm going to, like I said, change the names. So when you hear the names, know that these are just not the real people, but yeah.
Pseudonyms, yeah.
Pseudonyms, that's the word I was searching for. Okay, so this was around in the late 1970s.
Wait.
Oh.
We're not calling him Bigfoot. Let's call him something else also.
Sasquatch?
I'm just kidding. Sorry.
The Yeti? He got 1 million of them.
Sorry.
There are quite a few. Yeah, late 1970s. You guys know where Loma Prieta is? It's
that's not no, I don't. Sorry.
Yeah, it's up northern California. And a lot of people would go like hunting up in that area. It's a big giant campground kind of thing. It's not anymore. It has kind of the cities have kind of expanded into it and has become a sort of protected area, but it used to be open campground. So in that area, we have Jake and Peter and Junior. And they're going hunting like they usually do. They're just in their own small group, kind of hanging out, and they have a campground that is against this very large kind of boulder. Boulder is kind of an understatement. It's almost a big cliff that's kind of just there at the bottom of. And around them are these kind of like the shrubs and bushes that are around them leading into the forest and some trees. And it's night, very, very dark because it's in the middle of nowhere, but they do have their campfire and their tents that they have there. So while the three of them are around the fire, they all hear this rustling happening in the bushes just beyond where they can see. They can get the idea that this is about like maybe 50 feet away. And they can hear twigs snapping and bushes wrestling. And what disturbed them kind of like alarmed them at this was, there's crickets going, there's frogs croaking, and it's just all quiet all of a sudden, and then just those twigs snapping. Like night was just, the sounds of night were turned off, and that was the only thing that could be heard. So Jake is curious, and he takes his rifle, and he goes into this dark area with a flashlight, and the other two are kind of like behind him, but not right behind him, like they couldn't reach out and touch him. And they're going toward where they thought that they heard the sound, and then they just suddenly, like, the flashlight that he was holding is gone. It's out. Jake is nowhere to be seen, and they don't hear anything anymore. So Junior is like, so what do we do? And they start trying to look for him with their flashlights, and they find the bush that they think he is probably, or like what that sound was probably coming from. They find it. It's all snapped and torn and stuff, but they don't see Jake or anyone nearby. And they're like, what do we do? Do we just go out and look for him? Or do we just wait here for him to come back? And they kind of have this discussion with each other before the two remaining guys go, and they sit back around the campfire, and they decide if he doesn't come back in an hour, we'll go look for him. So Jake comes back. He runs into the campground, like full speed, like full on sprint. He runs out of there, his eyes all like, as it was described, like filled with just fear, just like scared as hell, hyperventilating, absolutely terrified. And he's panicking, he's tripping over his words, and he can't say anything. And they're trying to calm him down, like, what happened? And he's just yelling back at them, we got to go. We have to leave. We have to go right now. We have got to go. We cannot stay here. And that's like the only words he can really make out, but it's so frantic, and he's sweating in a very, very cold sweat. His whole shirt is like soaked in sweat, and they're like, okay, sounds good enough to me. Let's pack up and get going. So
he means it.
Yeah, he clearly means it. He clearly means that there's some shit went down. And he gets in the truck immediately, and he's just like saying, like, leave the tents, leave everything behind. And they're telling him, it's just like, well, what was out there? What did you see? And he won't say. He's just like, we just got to go. We have got to go. And he's like crying in there, like hysterical crying, getting them to try and go. And with that, they're like, okay, let's do it then. Let's go. And so they leave a lot of their stuff behind, and they get in their car. I believe it was I think they had a pickup truck, but I don't remember what vehicle that they had. And he's still in there, and he's hyperventilating, and he's having a hard time calming down. And when they're on the road about to get to the highway, Jake jumps out of the car and starts trying to just run down the highway. And they're like, where the hell are you going? And he actually like stopped traffic, and like cars were like having to like move out of the way and like brake real hard to not hit him. And people are getting in the road like, what's going on? What's his problem? And they're trying to apologize, and they're trying to collect Jake, but he's like fighting them. And he's like just in this state of panic, like absolute flight mode of getting out of there. And they said like his eyes just completely like what do they call it? The opposite of dilated. just kind of like looking around and sort of breathing real heavily, and he's shaking and he's not really saying any real words, almost like a speaking in tongues kind of thing. But they grab him and they drag him back to the car, kicking and like fighting, and he's just too exhausted. His body like can't fight back against them, and they put him in there, and Junior holds him down while they're driving, trying to calm him down, and he's still just like fighting it, and they're trying to get answer from him, like, what did you see, and his description that he finally gave was, it was like, he said it was this huge creature, like he said it was like 8 feet tall or something like that, really. And it was like, and it was covered in hair, and it was just hairy, and it just growled. And it said, and I could hear its voice in my head, like it was talking to me in my head. And
telepathy?
Yeah, something like that. And he was just saying that like over and over again. And they had him in the car, and they drove home. And when they kind of,
can I say something real quick?
Yeah,
I've
sure.
never heard of whatever Sasquatch experience that included telepathy. That's a first, man.
Same here.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's cool.
Point that out. That's awesome. Not awesome, but
yeah. When they finally got back, that was kind of like this, like, oh, you guys are back early. We didn't think you were coming back till tomorrow. And it was kind of like, yeah, well, Jake saw Bigfoot, and they kind of laughed about it. And and then Jake was like swinging on them. It's just like, don't fucking make fun of me like that. It's like, you don't know what it was. And since then, it's been the Bigfoot story. It's been like and I know Jake. I know him very well, to the point where it's like, this is one of the most rational, calm people that I've ever met. And someone who like you can have a discussion with them and it won't turn into an argument, because you know that your side will be heard and you'll be able to say your thing. Very chill, just kind of a reasonable individual. And to hear that description of him from the person who told me the story that was there, I couldn't even imagine Jake being that way. Like, I couldn't imagine just like the full panic, because I could never imagine him being in a panic.
Sounds like this was really out of character for him.
Yeah.
And he's never told you himself this.
No, I asked him one time, because I kind of like went into it with a kind of like chuckle. It's just like, so something that I've been told to ask you about a long time is your Bigfoot story. And he just shook his head and he said, I'm not going to tell you that story.
Wow.
And I kind of pressed him once and just said like, oh, come on, so I'm just curious what your side of it is. And he just says, is like, I'm not going to tell that story, and I have no interest in discussing it.
It sounds like he was traumatized legitimately.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
and when people didn't believe him, like, it's like, oh man, there's no good that can come from discussing this.
Yeah.
Whatever he saw out there sounds like it was something else, man.
Yeah, like that's the quote unquote,
putting it lightly.
Yeah, that's the quote unquote Bigfoot story of like the family. And I had always heard like joke versions of what had happened. Like, I remember asking one of my uncles, and he was just like, oh, he was just doing like this nude photo shoot with Bigfoot in the woods and stuff. And I had always heard it in like these joking terms. It wasn't until I asked Jake himself that I realized how serious it was. And that's when I asked one of the people that I knew was there what had happened. And he was just like, yeah, I'll tell you exactly what happened. And that was how I got the story.
And how many years has it been? You said this is, you said it was in the 70s.
Yeah,
right?
late 1970s is when this happened.
How old is Jake?
I want to say
Jake is an older
he's-
man then, huh?
I want to say he's 58, 59.
So he was okay. All right. So he was in,
Mm.
like what, 19? Right, am I right?
Something around there, yeah.
Did okay. I mean, it's crazy because I don't know if you know this, but did he know about Bigfoot before that happened? Because I didn't hear about Bigfoot till I was in around that age. I didn't know. I didn't really watch a lot of stuff on Bigfoot, so I didn't know about Bigfoot. I'm just curious. I don't even know if I'm not. I'm just curious about the.
I honestly have no idea if
And he
he knew about him or not.
Right, and it's crazy because you probably would never really find out. Those
Yeah.
are the stories that are when it's someone is like when they talk crazy and act crazy and it's like, hey, you see Bigfoot, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that it's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
anything, not just. But when it's you ask them, like I've had people who there's people in the family too. When you ask them about stuff that everyone else has told you about them, and you just see they clench their fists or they get a twitch in their face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
I mean, the idea of Bigfoot. I mean, first of all, I just want to say I don't think Bigfoot really does the creature justice. I think Bigfoot kind of takes the sting out of what we're or the mystique or the potential majesty out of what it is that we're discussing when we bring up Bigfoot.
Right.
Even Sasquatch sounds like, even Sasquatch doesn't quite sound to be as, and I know that's Native American, right? Sasquatch is a
Yeah.
Native American term, isn't it? So like, Sasquatch is better, but to me it doesn't quite capture the otherworldliness, because this isn't just some bear out there.
Right.
This isn't some monkey. This is like the theory, the going theory is that this is some sort of missing link creature that has survived like the ice age, and they may be thinking, they may be intelligent, and they're supposedly so smart that they're avoiding sightings from mankind, and they're just kind of like living out in the dark of the woods somewhere on the edge of society. And that myth, that idea is intriguing and kind of scary. You're dealing with a thing that's like twice your size, probably just as smart as you. You know what I mean? But wild. It's like like actually running into something that could be that. And then there's legends all over, right? I mean, you've got the Great Northwest, you've got the even Arkansas has like a version of the Bigfoot. The jungles down there in South America have not a Bigfoot per se, but there's like a legend down that way that talks of like a monkey man hybrid creature thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of similar in the idea that it looks like a person, but it's a bit more intimidating and larger, and it's definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
You know.
the thing about it too is like when you mentioned the whole, because when you think of it as just an animal, it kind of is like, well, they would have found something if it was just an animal. But when you talk, you mentioned like the telepathy part, and we've talked about this before, the Native American, like he was part of their mythology, right? Sasquatch for a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because they have there's a bunch of other stuff that's also, I believe we talked about
that which must not be named, of course.
Yeah, that starts with a W.
Yep. I'm not gonna say it.
Why was it that you wouldn't say it again? Sorry, I'm not gonna say it either. But it's something. And what is it? Is it any specific tribe, or what is it exactly?
It's supposedly like a demonic creature that can be summoned by naming it. So
By naming it, and it's saying the name is what can bring that onto you.
Yeah, and I don't want that.
Not even for the episode. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Do you consider that along lines to what what this Jake may have seen?
It could have been.
Because
It's
yeah, go
hard
ahead.
to speculate because, like I said, like it's referred to as the Bigfoot story, but that could have been anything. It literally could have been anything. And I think it's just because it's tall and had hair, and people would just assume that sounds like Bigfoot. Like, um,
Could have
It
been
could have been a bear.
it could have been a bear.
bears telepathy.
Well, the whole thing with if you want to be real skeptical and
Yeah,
such, like
right.
you can people under a lot of panic like that
Right.
can definitely start fooling themselves into believing some really like unbelievable stuff. But that all being said, are all of you familiar with the Missing 411 series?
Yes, I
No,
haven't seen
actually, I'm
it,
not.
but yes, David Paludes, is that his name?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah. I've heard about that more and more. Pops up on my YouTube all the time.
God
Explain
damn.
that to what people
Yeah,
to people.
no problem. It's one of the great mysteries that perplexes me.
Yeah.
The so in national parks around this country, there's a lot of people who have just straight up vanished in those parks. And but they don't vanish in the way that you would think, where like someone gets lost at night and they um fall down into like a crevice or something, or they get swept away by a river or something like that. It's never like somebody who was just they were drinking heavily and then they wound up in the park and they were never seen again kind of thing. It's always an interesting group of people, and the similarities between each case is what's really shocking. To be more specific, everybody who has disappeared like this, they were literally there and then they were not. So close to people that you could not imagine that a person could go missing that close to somebody. There was one report. I'll give a few examples just to show you what kind of disappearance I'm talking about. There was this one couple in Idaho who were like at this state park, and the road to get there is like rocky and bumpy, and it takes like you have to drive like 10 miles an hour to get there, or you'll just fuck up your tires, kind of thing. They were there. They're at this small little campsite with a camper as well. Grandpa's there, and it's a mother and father, and they have their young child, who I want to say is like 4 years old. About 100 yards away from the campsite, there's this small little creek that goes through there, and the dad and the son start heading over there because their son likes to look at the tadpoles and stuff in the water, and so he goes over with them to see if they can spot any. And then the mom shows up, goes over to where they are, and just kind of shouts down at them, "Hey, Grandpa's getting the food ready." And the son runs back, really excited, saying that like, "Oh boy, I'm getting ready to eat." And the wife goes down to hang out with her husband and hang out by the creek and like make out or whatever. And on the way back, that little boy was never seen again.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
There's that one. That one's fucking spooky.
The one where the guy was playing hide and seek with his daughter.
Yeah.
And he saw her go behind the bush, and he knew she was there. He could kind of see her.
Yeah.
Then he turned to look grab his phone or something, and he looked and she was gone, and it was like he could have
Yeah.
seen her walk away, and anyway, yeah.
There's one that was at Yosemite where
Oof.
it was a group of like I want to say 15 people, and they were all doing like a group hike together. And the one person who was like they're in a straight line, as straight as a line can be in like a hike. And they're all about, I want to say, 4 to 10 feet apart, roughly. So they're pretty close together. The one person who's in the back, they just turn a corner and he's just not there anymore. And
Wow.
like it's that close. People like vanish. And every time they're able to say, where was the last time you saw them? And they can pinpoint the exact position, the exact last place they were seconds before they disappeared. Like literally to say they were here and then they were gone. And what's interesting about the similarities here is each one of these stories, it's not only exactly like that, where it's a group of people and one person goes missing, and there was a lot of people who should have seen what happened. There's that similarity. There's the similarity that this all takes place next to particularly rocky areas. Another similarity is when they send search dogs to look for them, the dogs can't ever catch the scent at all. The fourth similarity is that they'll often find clothing left behind from the people who were there. And if they are seen again, which sometimes they're never seen again, but if they are seen again, they're always left right back where they were taken.
Yes. And then that's what I was going to ask. There has been some where they do come back and they kind of don't know what happened. And there's been kids who say they were taken by animals. I don't know if you heard about those.
Yeah, there's those ones. There's a story of the one who this kid who they're 2 years old. 2 years old. And within a night, they crawled supposedly 19 miles.
Wow.
And just ended up there. And of course that person is asked, so what happened? Like, I don't know, I was 2, but like it. And the other thing is they're always in these rocky areas, like particularly stony rocky areas where this always happens.
I want to dedicate this segment of this to anybody going out hiking to Yosemite and any national park. Yeah, that's the trippy thing about it is the trippy thing about it is when some of them are found back and they kind of don't know what the hell happened, and a lot of them are kids, and then some kids share these creepy stories of like wolves or whatever taking care of them, and what do you think? What do you think is an explanation to some of that shit, man? Because it's like that's a really I haven't seen the documentary. That guy who was he was like the state trooper, right?
He was an ex park. That's what I think is interesting too. Is the guy who wrote this series, and it's a book series called Missing 411. The guy who authored all of these, he used to be a park ranger and
investigator. There we go.
Yeah. One day, these guys showed up in his ranger office, and they said, "There's something that we think you ought to look at." And they came to him with a list of missing persons in parks. And the list was so long and it was so detailed as to how the people had disappeared and such that he looked at it and was just like, you're right, we ought to be looking at this. And he basically got in contact with whoever was the highest authority, and basically like the FBI. I don't think it was the FBI, but something like a similar branch of government with that kind of investigative power and federally working. And he was like, so do we have a national registry of people that have gone missing in parks? And not only did they tell him no, but they told him not to ever ask again.
Wow. This wasn't.
Oh, you realize that once this episode goes out, I mean, hell, the NSA's tapping our phones. You realize we're all going to go missing like within the next 48 hours, right?
You
Like,
invited me to
just
this
so you've been
show.
talking about this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but this is
So
this is
what?
public.
So now, what I'm going to say is that the obvious thing to me is that aliens, government cover up, and they're now. No one ever says out loud why the government would cover up alien presence. But I think the common sense answer is the reason why you would cover up alien abduction is because you wouldn't want people to panic.
Vortexes. Sorry.
You wouldn't want people to panic.
Right.
Because what else could you do in the face of like random alien abduction? I think it's interesting that it always happens in the same areas. Like it's always rocky areas. Why? Like it's either alien abduction or something supernatural. You know, the fact that the kids say they were taken by an animal and they don't really remember, like it could have been an alien snatching them. Like, and it is really creepy that they're there 1 minute. The other explanation for this is that these people are going off into the woods knowing that there's a pattern and they're just murdering their friends and relatives, thinking, it happens. We're just gonna say that we lost him.
I always
You saying like?
Sorry,
ahead.
no, you go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I doesn't.
I was just gonna say that the problem with theories about like copycats and stuff like that is the dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre how the dogs can never catch a scent. And then they wind up like either their bodies are found they're either never found again, their bodies are found back where they disappeared, like right there. That's
clothes on.
with clothes usually, like because they'll find their clothes sometimes.
Right? Usually the shoes, right, are the ones that are missing only.
Yeah,
which is weird. Yeah.
Or if they're found there still alive or found dead, it's right where they were taken from, like right where they vanished. And I'm just throw this out there: dogs will find you.
Yes.
They I remember in Mythbusters they were pretending to like do jailbreaks and stuff to see if sniffer dogs could actually track down people. And they did all the little tricks in movies to see if they could successfully throw off the dog's scent. They couldn't. Those dogs found them every single time.
Yeah. That is the strangest thing, and like when for me it's just creepy when they go missing, and then they're found in the same spot where they were found before. This is one of the cases that I heard. This lady, she was found, and when they found her, it was right where she went missing, but she was naked and her clothes were like neatly placed next to her.
Yeah, there's a few that are like that
Jesus.
too.
Which is what some people say. It could be because when someone's they're going into what's it called, hypothermia from the cold.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to take their clothes off, which doesn't make sense. But that could be an explanation for that. But it's like, okay, but you went missing from your group that you were with from 1 minute to the next, and it's like, all right, well, when it comes to like what is it? Is it a government thing where they're training for some whatever? Is it aliens? Is it a vortex? Whatever the hell. That's where it becomes creepy. And then, like I said, the stories that some kids have, some of them, like, what it seems like their memory's been erased.
Yeah, a lot of them don't remember anything that happened too.
Right. Yeah, like, what year is it? Fucking John Connor. Yeah, man. That have you gone to a national park recently, or after watching or reading?
I haven't done anything this year recently.
Oh yeah.
This year has not been I'm gonna go do fun things year.
The more appropriate question to ask is like, what books you been reading? What you been watching?
Yeah. No, right. Because when I started reading about the 411 and watching YouTube videos on certain cases, I was like, man, I kind of started like, I don't know, I haven't been to Yosemite. I don't know if I want to go anytime soon.
Nah,
Yeah,
Yosemite's beautiful.
it feels like an unsolved mysteries sort of a thing too. Like kind of things
Yeah,
they bring up
it
on that
absolutely
show.
is.
and that's one of those. Like there's no fucking leads on this shit. You know, like there. I don't know. Like when it comes to like paranormal, like haunted houses stuff. I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of options of what that could be at this point.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this, it's like, yeah, well, what the fuck is it?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? There's no answers.
That's why, I know this is supposed to be about me telling you guys scary stories, and I do have a lot. But
this is scary shit, man.
There
Like,
was have y'all heard of Stardust Ranch?
Is that
No.
Oh, I'm here to tell you guys about Stardust Ranch. This is one of those things that the more you look into it, the more you just scratch your head and are like, I have no idea what's going on there.
Is it similar to Skinwalker Ranch?
It's similar in the fact that it's a ranch.
Okay.
And that they see bizarre things on this ranch. That's basically the two similarities.
Okay.
Stardust Ranch, I always love the story about when it's this guy named John, who I forget his last name, but he got this ranch as part of his like retirement. He used to be either a psychologist or a psychiatrist on the East Coast, and he wanted to retire to create a shelter for lots of different animals, mostly horses. And he just wanted to have a ranch where he could do that, and he found a really cheap one in Arizona called Stardust Ranch. And I fucking love how this story begins. Before it gets really fucking crazy, it already begins insane. Where John and his wife arrive at the main building on Stardust Ranch, and they go there, and the family that owned it previously, who sold it to them, all their furniture and everything was still there. Like, they didn't pack up and leave at all. And so he was like, well, that's
like the Amityville house.
No, like straight up, like they were still living there. It looked like, like like maybe they left to go to the grocery store, is how like everything is still there. Like the TV is on and shit like that. And so John calls the real estate company and is like, hey, did you not tell them, like, what time we were going to be coming? Because they're still here, they still got all their stuff here. They're not here right now, but all their stuff is here. And they're like, okay, that's interesting. And so John, the real estate company said, all right, we'll tell them, and they'll be out of your way in like a few hours, basically. And John said, okay. So they went to like, fucking Denny's or something like that, and just kind of waited it out. And when they went back there, they had a pool area. All the furniture was in the pool.
What?
Like, yeah, like the pool wasn't full, but it was like an empty pool, and all the furniture was in the pool. And John was like, what a bunch of jackasses, like, doing that shit to us. So he was mad, and he called the real estate guy again and was just like, these guys went and put all that stuff in the pool. What's up with that?
What?
And he said back to John, that's weird. They just called me back and refused to take any of their furniture back because you had put it all in the pool.
What?
Yeah, that's how this story begins. Like,
oh, there's more to it.
Oh, there is more to
Yeah,
it.
like,
That's how the story begins. So fast forward about a week, John and his wife have moved in. They've got all their stuff together, and on like the fence of the ranch, there's this guy standing there with a machete, and he's just standing there with his machete, and John he grabs like his pistol and tucks it into his pants, into the back, and he's like, I'm gonna go talk with him. So he goes and talks with him, and the guy with the machete says, "Who are you?" And John says, "I'm the one who owns the ranch." He's like, "No, you're not. It was the other family." It's like, "Yeah, we bought it from that family." And the guy with the machete points at the barn that's on the ranch and says, "That's where I live." And he says, "Well," John's like, "Well, you aren't going to be able to live there much longer because I own this ranch, and I don't really want you living in the barn." And then, according to John, he said that the following words haunt him every day for the rest of his life. The guy with the machete says, "You'll be sorry when I'm gone. There's monsters on this ranch, and I kill them."
What? What? There's monsters on this ranch, and
Yeah. And then the guy just left, and John has never seen that man again. And since then, everything is fucking bonkers. From like these fucking all these reports of aliens that he sees there, bright lights in the middle of the night, little gray dudes that run around and like terrorize his animals that he's got. The craziest story, though, because of the evidence that it presents, is John has like a weapons collection of like swords and shit. One time in the middle of the night, one of these little fucking aliens was trying to pull his wife out of her bed, and he gets up and he grabs one of his swords and chops one of them. And according to him, when he hits it with the sword, it just disintegrates, and the thing was gone, but there was still like this what he assumes is its blood on the sword. So him being a psychologist, he had a lot of connections of people with science, but back when he studied it. And so he sent it to a guy he knew who was now working as a biology professor at MIT. And he sends the sample to the guy, and the guy sends a note back to him, a letter that says, "I've never seen anything like this before. And what you found is truly unique. And I want to keep it here for more studies." A couple days later, that scientist who sent him that note, which John still has, that scientist dies from an accident in his laboratory, and the sample is gone.
Oh, shit.
That happens. That's some crazy shit. And John also said that there was this portal that opened up in the ranch, and like it was being projected by this weird stone. He has the stone and he's found it and he's shown it to people. And there's people who say, "Oh, it looks like it was a very unique laser cutting device that used it." And other people who were like, "Even if you had a laser device to cut this stone, this is like one of the greatest like artistic cuts into a stone that they've ever seen." He has like a couple pictures that they're a little bit fuzzy, but he says that it's proof of like aliens and shit. He says that he used to have people that would come to the ranch to spend the night after hearing what it's like, and he stopped doing that because, quote, he got tired of people running out of the house screaming in the middle of the night, so he just doesn't let people come over anymore.
You should have charged.
There's
charged.
There's an hour-long interview online that you can watch with this guy, and you can't quite hear it, but the interview will stop in the middle and you'll see all their eyes look straight up, and the interviewer will be like, "What's that?" And he's like, "I don't know, that happens sometimes." And
What?
And it happens several times in the interviews. And at one point they go, is this like a natural occurrence? And he's like, "Yeah, it just You hear that sound, just like feet walking on the roof. It happens
Yes.
all the time.
That's happened to me.
Yeah, he's it's just like
Now, where's the Stargazer Ranch again?
Stardust Ranch is in Arizona somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, something about that west, that sort of westward area where it's not total west, like Arizona, Area 51, like, you know what I mean? The whole section is just like chock full of alien. They just love
Weird shit.
They just
Yeah.
love that area.
He also
It must remind them of their home or something.
He also claims that he's been abducted by aliens. And the interesting thing about his story is that he had cancer, and they told him that he was going to die, like it was terminal. And then he got abducted by aliens, according to him. And then he came back to the doctor, and they basically said he was cured.
Wow.
It's some bonkers shit. And honestly, I haven't even scratched the surface of everything that this man says that he has experienced. But if you ever want to get into all the stuff going down at Stardust Ranch, I do recommend there's an hour-long interview of the guy who owns the place on YouTube that can be watched, and it's fascinating.
What gets me is when he buys the ranch from the former owners, you'd think the former owners would be like, by the way, there's this like 6'5" gentleman with a machete. We call him Bob. We're not really sure what his name is. We just call him Bob. He lives in the barn. Let him live in the barn. He's kind of important to the integral structure of the place. That's something that the realtor should have told you. By the way, Bob is harmless to you. He's here to keep all the creepy shit in line.
That'd be a great thing. That'd be a great thing to kind of if you're renting out a room or like a barn out of somebody's house, and they move out and you're not cool with the new tenant, you just come up to them and say, hey, I'm the one that kills the monster, so don't get rid of me, okay?
It seems to me there are just certain areas in the country that you just don't want to fucking be in. Right?
Yeah,
like
Area 51, the Arizona
desert,
there's just a lot of stories.
Arizona, Texas, them shits. You don't want to be there.
Mojave Desert.
You don't want to be
the Mojave Desert.
You don't want to be the Mojave Desert. You don't want to be like in certain East Coast areas because I think Massachusetts is fucking haunted.
But yeah, there's a lot of like haunted houses in Massachusetts. There's a lot of that shit. But what I find interesting about there's stuff in the Arizona. There's a lot of places in Arizona. I think Sedona. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Where there's vortex and people have seen things, and some people go to meditate in certain parts of that. I believe it is in Sedona because there is known vortexes there, and then there's also the whole conspiracy about in the mountains where people kind of just get decapitated. I don't know if you're familiar with that one by some area, and I forgot what part of
it sounds
Arizona.
Familiar. I don't remember the story with enough detail.
You're right, where some rogue I believe it's Apache. They guard the mountains because there's something important in the mountains that the Vatican wanted to get into. It's a lot of crazy shit, and then the countless stuff that happens in deserts in general. Like a lot of crazy people end up in the desert either because of the isolation, and then there's a lot of weird ritualistic stuff that happens in the deserts. I'm sure. I'm sure you could elaborate, or if you know any of those. I have a story that I heard on. I don't know if you guys ever listen to Art Bell.
Art Bell.
Great fucking radio. There's a lot of interesting interviews that he has. There was this one particular case that he had on. I don't know if you ever heard his interviews with Malachi Martin.
No, I haven't.
it's an exorcist priest who wrote a lot of books. Well, there's this interesting case, and I believe this was in the Mojave, where it was this person who called in who said she witnessed this ritual happen. I believe if I was not mistaken, in the Mojave Desert, where they burned a baby to the bone, and they used the bone to make an instrument, and that was like part of the ritual. And that's I believe that the Mojave's in California, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like I was here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's but no, there's definitely some creepy shit in that whole area, man. Arizona especially. And but yeah, I'll let you get to what you're talking about. Sorry.
I did want to get to this one story particularly that I wanted to tell because it happened to me, and it's a very like vivid memory. I was I want to say 15 years old. And I remember that I was having to write an essay for a class that I was in, English class. And in my house, there's the kitchen connects to the living room, and in the kitchen there is a computer. So I'm sitting there, and if I turn to my right, there's at the end of a hall, there's the front door to the house, and there's a light above that. And across from that door, just across the hall there, is the door to the garage. I remember sitting there, and there was just a light on over there in front of the front door and the garage. And I was sitting at the computer. I had just the lamp on above me and the computer on. I was some length into my essay when I heard this like scratching wood sound. And I remember thinking that was really spooky sounding, and I turned my head, and standing under the light there was just this black human-shaped figure, just like pitch black, like complete dark. And it looked like it might have had something in its hands. I couldn't tell what it was, but otherwise it was standing, legs kind of spread out, arms kind of spread out, and it looked like it was looking back at me. And I remember just staring at it. I'm sure it was only a few seconds, but it felt like fucking minutes staring at this thing. And then it just turns and it opens by the handle the door into the garage, and then it goes down and it shuts the door behind it. And I remember just sitting there staring, and I'm sure I was there for probably like 5 minutes, felt like half an hour. I just stared, looking and thinking in two thoughts, just like, one, I'm in danger, and two, I should go and see what that was.
Yeah.
And eventually I just stood up, went, fuck it, and grabbed a flashlight and grabbed a knife and went down over to that door. I opened it up, immediately flicked the lights on. There was nothing down there. No sign that anything had been disturbed. The exit door still locked and didn't look like anything had touched it. And it's just such a fucking vivid memory.
How old were you when this happened?
I was
again?
15 when this happened.
15.
And this happened at home, man.
Yeah, this happened in my house.
That's the worst when it happens at home.
I immortalized this memory that I have kind of with my first Sinister Intruder album cover is me trying to recreate that memory of what I saw that night. So if you ever have your Sinister Intruder first album, the self-titled album handy, you can look at that album cover and realize that that's similar to what I saw that night, when I was trying to
I mean,
capture.
honestly, that entire encounter is your moniker. You dealt with a sinister intruder.
I sure did.
Oh shit! How did you feel when you saw that? Like,
Oh, scared
cause
to
you
fuck, man.
okay? Yeah, no, I'm okay. Cause I just well, you're into all that dark stuff, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, but because I don't know. I thought maybe you'd be like, oh, cool, but
There's definitely a part of me that's like, oh, that's awesome. That's cool. But
right,
in the moment, I was not thinking that way at all.
right. Like I'm so
Because you're
flattered.
looking at something that you don't understand
Right.
and it looks otherworldly, and you're like, what is this thing doing in my house? Like,
Like I'm so
what the
flattered you
hell?
chose me. Yeah.
We would all like to think, I mean, it's easy to like make light of things in hindsight. We
Yeah.
would all like to think that we could see the alien thing 6 feet away from us and have a casual conversation with it, maybe shoot the breeze, heck, maybe run at it violently and be like, ah! But real talk, I think our brains just kind of like shut the fuck down seeing something like that. That is like not
Yeah.
quite human and not
Well,
quite,
well,
you know.
that's what you said when you saw that thing. I last year we did a Halloween episode and I shared a story that was kind of similar to that. I believe I mentioned that to you. That was the first experience I ever had where I saw a silhouette, black figure, like you said, like a shadow figure, walking across the window, and the
Mm-hmm.
light shining from the outside, kind of it just made it very visible.
Mm-hmm.
And my first thought, I gotta fucking, I gotta shank this thing. Whoever
Right.
this is, you're gonna get shanked for breaking into my home. But then also I was like 12 and I'm alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's just, and this thing looked tall, like 6 feet tall. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna, I'm not. The first initial reaction is, okay, it's an intruder. But then also when you see that it's, because it's one thing to see it, you also heard, right? You heard the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard footsteps of the stairs because this thing walked towards the stairs, and as it disappeared into the stairs, I didn't see it anymore, obviously. And then I heard it was walking towards the stairs, and then I was like, okay, I just saw a shadow of something,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Then I heard footsteps going upstairs into the
Yeah.
going upstairs. So, oh, okay, well maybe there is something there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We
man.
have the Sinister Intruder album up on Spotify right now, and I'm looking at the album cover like, oh, now that you point that out, yeah.
Yeah. That's what that is.
Was that the only?
This album, this was a good one.
Was that the only time that happened to you, man? That particular, like that kind of thing.
Seeing that, I've never seen that thing again.
Okay.
I've had like a few strange things happen in my house that I was vaguely aware of what was going on, because all of my friends who've been over to my house quite a few times have bizarre stories of stuff that they have seen, and I don't know, maybe it's because I live here, I just don't notice it anymore. But here's a little story about a piece of furniture that I own. This was a dresser that my mother had, and they found it back when my mom and dad first got married, so quite a while ago, and they were looking at things at like a garage sale kind of thing, and they got this dresser, and the dresser used to have a mirror on it, right above it, like because there's like a flat top to the dresser, and then behind that is like a vanity mirror. And they first had it in my grandparents' house, and they just kind of set it up in there. And then one time my mom was in the bedroom, and she was getting ready, and she felt like there was something watching her from the mirror. Like, when she looked at it, like she felt like there were eyes that were like looking at her from it. And those were weird feelings, and it was strange and stuff. But it was not enough to where she was just like, this is haunted kind of thing. That came when one time she looked into the mirror. And have you ever put like two mirrors back to back and it does that tunnel effect?
Yeah.
It was doing that, except without a mirror behind it facing it. It was doing a tunnel effect in like the mirror by itself, just being there. And she saw that, she looked in it, and the way that she describes it is like she just felt her heart sink, and she felt that if she looked longer, she was going to like lose her soul, is the way that she said it. So she went to my dad, and she just said, I want you to break the mirror on that thing. Just do it. And he was, I imagine, just like he did his usual laugh dismissal kind of thing. And she was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. Just do it. So he did. And since then, they had no trouble with the dresser. And now that dresser is in my room. And it still has like the cork board back to where the mirror used to be. And sometimes I look at it and I go like, you used to be haunted.
You probably still are. You just can't communicate anymore.
Well, do you know the origins of that mirror or where it came from?
Not at all. It was at a garage sale.
A garage sale.
Oh man,
that's crazy. Yeah,
Gosh.
like furniture that's used. Sometimes it's kind of scary with all, like what was that? The Dybbuk box. From that. Yeah. Yeah, if something looks that creepy, I probably just go to IKEA. I mean, I own something that used to belong to Michael Savage. That's creepy in itself.
Hey, but you know what? I'll bet you that thing that you saw was probably the spirit that your dad released when he broke the mirror. It's probably just kicking at your house still. It's just free now.
Oh yeah, was that after that incident with you when you saw that thing?
I wasn't even born yet when the mirror was broken.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. All right, yeah.
So yeah, that thing's probably been haunting the house ever since your dad let it free.
That's fine. He's not hurting anyone.
How do you feel about those things? Like, I mean, we talked about, obviously it's scary, but like, do you feel like you don't want them there, or is it interesting to kind of see that shit if it does come around again?
I kind of have the curiosity of, if you ever watch those like ghost hunting shows, like they go and they put themselves in the situation and they go, hey, does anyone want to talk? If you want to, go right ahead. And then when something actually happens, they're like, oh God, oh no, what's going on? Like it's like, you wanted this though, you guys, you're finally getting it.
Yeah, but it's never like a civil conversation on the ghost end. It's always like some weird creepy, unearthly it's all that. Look, my point is that spooks are fucking rude.
Well, but then I remember Phil, you still there?
Fucking rude.
Phil shared this meme that's like so true. It's like, those Ghost Adventures guys, they talk shit and then they get scared when the ghost squares up. And that's exactly how it turns out. Like, if you go out, it's like, show yourself, you coward. Like, oh, yeah, dude.
And the ghost is like, okay.
One of my favorite stories about a ghost hunting show. There's this Let's Play group that I like to watch called Achievement Hunter, and they have their show that's a ghost hunting show called Achievement Haunter, because they're ridiculous human beings. And they went to locations that are supposedly haunted, and they go in there with all of the cynicism and sarcasm and disbelief that any ghost hunting group could possibly have. And they play pranks on each other to try and scare each other. And it's a very like skeptical group of people who are doing it. And most of the time, like, I love their personalities and group, which is why I really enjoy it. But there's some weird things that have happened on their show but none more than this one they did at this sawmill, where one of them, Jeremy, he said that, yeah, when I was in that room, it felt like something brushed against my back, and that was a little weird. And it's like, it still kind of stings, honestly. And they said, I wonder if it left a mark. Why don't you take off your shirt? And he did. And there were these giant fucking claw marks right across his back. And
that is some Stephen King. As soon as you said sawmill, I was like, that is some Stephen King level shit right there.
Fun fact about that was that for a lot of the people that they were with, their crew with the cameras and the microphones and everything, and the people who did the lighting and stuff, a lot of them were like, that's it, we're out. And so the rest of Achievement Hunter is just like, but we found what we were looking for. What do you guys mean? And
the crew's like, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why we're leaving.
Because they were straight up like, we didn't think this shit was real, but that was some other level shit right there.
Yeah.
I'll probably be like the one person.
I've been wanting to do something like that for a while. Like, I have a really elaborate Ghostbusters costume, and I've been wanting to just go to like haunted places dressed up as a Ghostbuster and like troll the tour guides and whatnot. You know, when they're just like, this is the most haunted location in Northern California, I can fucking wave my PTE meter and just be like, barely a class 2.
Winchester Mystery House.
See. Why is the Winchester Mysteries House actually? Is it supposed to be haunted? I thought it was just built by a crazy woman, and that was its attraction.
About that. Yeah, interesting about that. I have this little. It's not my theory, but it's somebody told me, someone from San Jose, and then I share that with Mr. Sinister Intruder. But he had a very. You remember we talked about that, right?
I don't.
Okay. Well, the whole theory that this person that I know, he's from San Jose,
so he's already not trustworthy.
Exactly. No, this is somebody who I believe used to work there, or who was like I forgot the exact details, but the gist of it was the person who was the psychic medium who was dealing with Mrs. Winchester. She was telling her, oh, you need to build this, you need to do that, because it'll, the ghost will get confused and they won't fuck with you. But she was also connected with a contractor who was building all this shit. So it was kind of like, what do you think I should do? I think you should keep building.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like, it kind of helped the whole, especially it was a crazy. Well, everyone thought she was a crazy person, and anyone who is whatever crazy and rich, there's always going to be those leeches, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not saying I don't believe there isn't anything there. I'm just saying that's a pretty good fucking theory that I can see something that somebody would do, to someone who thinks she's under attack from the paranormal, which I also believe in. But I believe we talked about this.
Yeah, I remember it now.
Yeah.
There is this, thinking about that house reminds me of a short PBS film I saw. That PBS has this, I don't know if they still have it on KQED PBS. It's Image Makers, right? Where they have varying short filmmakers, and they have various collections. And in one of these films, there's this family, and they moved into this new house, and they've been there for like maybe a couple of weeks. And the premise is they're leaving their teenage daughter at home, who's kind of or middle grade daughter at home, who's not really feeling move, and she's still warming up to the new house. So the parents are on a date, and she calls and says, "Hey, the power went out." I'm like, "Oh, that's weird." Well, I'll tell you what, I'll guide you to where you can set the circuit breaker. So the father's on the phone with his daughter, and he's giving her directions, and it's, you're cutting on her end and cutting on his end. You're cutting back and forth between the parents at dinner and then her in the dark ass house. And then finally she's like, all right, I reached the steps. Great. Now it should be 12 steps down. And then once you get down to the 12th step, you're going to make a left and the circuit breaker will be right there. Right. So what ends up happening is that right when she gets to 12, she goes 13, 14,
What?
15, 6, and then like the steps kind of like fade off. He's like, honey, are you still there? 16? Oh shit. And then the movie just kind of ends. So it's like, where's the staircase going? Is it
Mm-hmm.
going to hell? Is it like, you know what I mean? I think I think about that whenever I think about that house. It's like if that house is really haunted, then just imagine going down a stairwell that literally never ends because of
Right.
supernatural shenanigans. That was a great place to end that. I was like, man, I wish I wrote that. Gosh,
The SCP
that's
stairwell.
yeah. Jeez.
What? It's interesting, and I'm glad, dude. This is exactly why I wanted to have. Like, why I'm glad you came on, because you just shared 4 stories, and they're all individual. Like, it's paranormal, but it's not all just ghost stories. It's all these different forms of paranormal stuff that scares us.
I mean,
And
we went from Sasquatch to
yeah,
aliens to hauntings.
whatever the hell the 411 is, like whatever's
Mm-hmm.
taking that, it's creepy in itself because it's just unanswered stuff. And then you went to stuff, and then the stuff that happens in our home. For me, that's kind of the creepier because I can avoid the woods,
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just, but yeah, they're all creepy and they're all scary, and there's no like, what's scarier? I don't know. What do you
You
think
know,
is?
there is a dark comedy, or maybe just a straight up like comedy to be made about a group of guys who hear about the whole Rocky disappearance thing, and they're like, "You want to go to one of these national parks and see which ones go missing? Like, you think there's a criterion who they're going to choose?" That's the whole premise of the movie. I bet you it's gonna be me. Oh, it always has to be you, huh? You have to
Yeah.
win everything. I'm just saying, why wouldn't they take me?
I
What?
imagine that in the fucking cast of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia saying it.
Real quick,
We
man.
ought to go down there and make a documentary trip for Frosted Minifears and just be like, so we're walking where like that 6-year-old just disappeared right in front of her father's eyes. We're just gonna see which one of us goes. Just film the whole
Yeah,
damn thing.
fucking body cams on everybody.
And then make them
Yeah,
so they're like they're just like not just not just then you have to feed the body cam wirelessly into a central hub so if one of us does get snatched up we can see what happened, be like, right there, you see the weird gray long skinny hand that took him right there, and then the feed cut.
whatever that use whatever the hell astronauts use to fucking communicate with rover and fucking
Cause yeah,
Mars.
because we have all this technology now. We can take pictures and send shit to each other. It should be kind of hard now to get kidnapped by aliens. And I'm knock on wood because I'm sitting in my car outside my house and having all these creepy conversations. I halfway expect to get abducted or
He
run into 6
disappears.
different specters on the way back into my house. But
He disappears after this phone call. Oh my god!
and he
No,
is
you know what?
never heard from again.
He's never again. Mr. Intruder. If I can call you that.
If you want.
Okay. I know you got another story for us, man, and you're a very good storyteller. I think, I don't know, I think we have a new segment of our episodes called Stories with Sinister Intruder.
Oh goodness.
I mean, don't you think that's a good idea, guys?
Oh yeah,
Since he has all these fucking stories, man, let's immortalize this shit.
like
But dude, hey, I know you got another story for us, man.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, I've got another one.
Let me start masturbating. Go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Hey, if you like.
I mean, he's not going to start until the story starts.
That's
why he's like, never
It
mind.
wouldn't be any
Wait until
different than the
perfect
last
moment.
time I was there. Only difference is we were all in the same room, and
no, you know what? That night that we went for that walk and we were sharing all these stories, because I shared some of mine with you, you shared a lot of yours. It was, we're walking and then we're in the park and it's dark. I don't know. That was just like, all right, man. Yeah, let's get the fuck out of here. Something
I
about
could feel it. I was like,
yeah,
JD's a little
yeah,
frightened. Let me see how long I can keep him out here.
yeah. It just brings back a lot of memories, man. And it's yeah.
Speaking of the Native American legend of that which shall not be named, there's
Just so people, can you do something where you can explain that so that people understand what we're talking about?
it's the
Say it.
Wendigo.
Oh, don't
Oh, the
say it.
Canadian. That's Canada over
Yeah.
there. Why
Uh,
can't it be
That's
named?
I mean, you can name it all you want.
But there's a reason that you don't want to name it. Why is that?
a Native
I was gonna
American
say it
person
in the
telling us not.
story.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
So there was I was dating this girl in Georgia this one time, and I went over to visit her, and she had told me that it's like, yeah, the town I live in is basically haunted, and I was like, sounds like fun. And she has a lot of fun stories about like the time like her cousin like invited a vampire into their house. That's a fun one.
Whoa.
Yeah. There's that
That
one, but we're not gonna get to that one.
damn.
We'll
I
hear
love
about that one
vampires.
next time.
Yeah,
Next time.
exactly.
That sounds like the
You
biggest
wait, hold on.
mistake.
You mean a real vampire, or are you talking about like those dudes that are? I mean, like like
no, not just a bunch of goth dudes. No.
okay, fucking Marilyn
Shit,
Manson looking
vampires are
No.
motherfucker.
real?
Well,
Uh-oh.
this is much like the Bigfoot story. It may or may not have been.
It's okay. All right.
But this story
God damn it, I'm on something.
is one that she told me, and I was on my way over, and she just basically said, all right, now here's the thing, is my house is right next to the woods. We're not that you're going to, but do not go out into the woods at night. And I was like, no problem. Even if you hear things out there that sound like they want you to come into the woods, don't do that. So this was the setup I had for, going there. I'm being driven over to her house right now, and I'm listening to all this, and I'm like, that's great. That's great.
Wait, so it's stuff, even though you might hear stuff you like.
Even if it sounds like they want you to come in, don't go in.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, JD, we're huge fans of the Voice Party. Come over here.
Yeah, apparently that's a bad idea.
Oh shit. Okay.
But
we have brewskis for you, JD.
Oh,
What?
I was on like her front kind of like driveway because she was stepping out for a smoke, and I was hanging out nearby, and she told me the story right there, and she pointed along the path of like showing where this happened and what happened. And she was saying that she was with her cousin, and they were talking about this Native American legend, and they were talking about it like the other night. And so she said, and so one night we're out here looking at like, and it's a pretty long driveway. Like it's probably about like 20 yards, and kind of winds down onto the street, and it's kind of like the street in Pet Cemetery that all the trucks just fucking zoom down. It's kind of like that kind of area. But they saw coming out of the woods in the distance on the other side of this road, coming out of there was this creature, hind legs standing, and had antlers on its head, real hairy, looked about like 12 feet tall, walking out of these woods, and just slowly but surely coming across the street and starting to walk up their driveway. And they're like, what the fuck is that? And they just immediately like, we're going inside the house. So they go inside the house, and they run in there, they shut the door, and they go into her bedroom, and they're just saying like, did you see that? And it's like, yeah, I saw that. And at one point they said, do you think it's still out there? And they or her cousin went and looked out like the window of her bedroom, which just looks into the woods. Didn't see anything because it's just like trees and dark and stuff like that. And then they look out the window into like their front yard, and he sees it out there, fucking clear as day, standing in the fucking driveway. And it's not looking at them. It's like looking back towards the woods with like their back toward them, just with these fucking deer antlers and this big hairy body. And it was like just fucking standing there, and he gets real scared and slumps back on the couch, and he's like starts to cry because he feels like it's his fault that he said the name and he said the word and stuff. And so she told me this story, and then she tells me, it's like, so now that you're in its country, you can't say the name. And I went, oh.
Oh shit.
So
Okay,
I
so
haven't
if you're
said the
in-
name since, basically.
But that only works if you're in the land where it resides, right?
Maybe. I
And
didn't
where
ask
and
for
where
details.
and where did this happen again?
This was
East
in
Coast?
Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah,
South, yeah.
the South. We passed houses with Confederate flags on them, and that's how I knew I was in the deep South.
Yeah, those
so
people
you never
just there's still some people that haven't heard they lost the war, bless their hearts. It's been like 2-3 generations, 4 or 5 generations since then, and they're like, yeah, well, General Robert E. Lee still needs good men to enlist. If you boys want to go in.
so go back to your W homie, the W homies.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, you never. So you ever since that, you never.
Oh,
you don't want to say the name.
No, I'm comfortable not saying that name.
Here's what's weird. I'm a comic book fan, as the show, as people that listen to the show know, and as you all know. And I have said that name a bunch of times because he is, in Marvel Comics, they have a character who, as the legend goes, when you commit cannibalism, you turn into one of those things.
Yeah.
And he's a Wolverine villain, like
That's
Alpha Flight Wolverine face off against him.
That's how they trick you to say it, bro.
But I've said Wendigo a bunch of times. I used to fight.
And you're outside. You come on, man. You're breaking all the rules.
Look, I used to fight Wendigo in the arcade game. Remember the X-Men arcade game?
Yeah.
He's in I think he's on like level 2 or 3. Fight the Wendigo, and all he does is that when you're fighting the characters, when you're fighting the characters, they tend to say their names. Have you ever played the 90s X-Men arcade cabinet game?
I have played fighting games before. That is what they do.
Well, it's a side scroller.
Solomon Grundy.
Not really. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's like a one of those old school side scrolling beat 'em ups, and it's basically like he's just Wendigo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, after you told me about that, I actually, I looked up the mythology behind it, and it's like deep in the Native American culture and a lot of different Native American cultures. It's like, it's not just, it's an interesting, there's a lot of interesting stories about that. So did you, when you were there, did you experience anything?
Oh, I heard sounds in the woods.
Well, like what? Like just regular animal sounds?
I think so. I'd never heard animals sound like that because it was not cats or dogs, because I live in basically a suburb.
Yeah.
And so it's not cats or dogs, and it didn't sound like coyotes or mountain lions or whatever, because I've heard what those sound like too. There was just like creepy sounds, and I was like, I'm sure those are animals, and I was able to convince myself enough to get some sleep.
Mhm.
But sometimes I think about that and just like, yeah, those sounds were weird.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's not your environment you're used to. You know, and the forest. I mean, the forest itself is strange. You know,
Yeah.
like it's just like the but there's always those stories, man. You know, those stories that like about the country, or or in Mexico, there's a bunch of stories family members share about. One of the famous stories about, I don't know if you're familiar with the duendes. So they call them duendes. They call them other stuff in other parts of Mexico, but they look like kids, but they're not kids. they try to like kidnap people at night.
Well, regular kids do that too, so
Well,
Is this like that urban legend about like the kids with the dark eyes,
similar to
the
that,
black eyes?
supposedly they're they look like children. They're really strong, and they look like they may be deformed, but they're not. I don't know if I share this story. This is an old story that my uncle told us many years ago about one of his friends who experienced this in Mexico, and the place where my parents are from, Michoacan, which is a lot of farmland in that area. I guess these guys would meet up around 3 a.m. to start working because it gets really hot in the day there, so they got to work when the sun's not full force. So they would meet up at 3 a.m. and they would bike to the furthest point of the I believe it was like a cornfield. And when this first guy shows up, he rides in his bike and he's got his flashlight on, and it's still dark out. And he gets to that point where they're supposed to meet. There's trees around him, and then his friends aren't there. There's two more guys that are coming. They're not there, so he's just waiting there. He's sitting on his by his bike. He hears a bunch of ruffling of the bushes near him, and he flashes his lights, and then he just hears a bunch of like kids, but they don't sound like kids. They sound strange. They sound like the way that he described it, the guy told him like if these kids smoked cigarettes a lot. That's what they sounded like. But they spoke not like kids. They spoke like adults, but they sounded like they weren't from that time.
God is displeased with you, Malachi.
Yeah, right. He scared the shit out of
Kill
me.
him to the core.
Right. Exactly. That's what the way he described it, and
He who walks beyond the road.
Yes.
Yeah. And this uncle had never seen that film. So no, yeah. So he says these kids, it's like 12 of them, they show up and they say, hey, come with us. We got to show you something. And like, well, what? They're like, you're little kids. What the hell? But you notice they look weird. They look weird. They look like they had two left feet. And they look like they may be disformed, some of them, but they weren't. And then they were super strong,
Mm-hmm.
So they grabbed them by the arms. They're like, come on, come with us. They're trying to grab them and pull them to where that bush was, and he's like, no, leave me alone. And then he noticed their pupils were weird. They were like, not, I don't know if he said dilated. The pupils were like black, so they look weird.
Mm-hmm.
And as they're pulling him, he's kind of shuffling them off, and he's trying, but they were really strong, so they were actually pulling him towards the bush. As soon as that's happening, his friends show up. He can hear their bikes like nearby, and then they just run away, and then they completely disappear. Like from like he flashed his light, and they weren't there. They were just gone. They ran away, but they were gone completely. He could have seen them, and the friends show up, and he's all like torn up, and he's scared. And they asked him what happened. Like these fucking kids just try to like attack me or something. They looked at his arms. He had like prints, like tiny handprints, but it left a mark on his hand from like the pressure of how strong they were.
Mm.
So that's that. Yeah, there's a couple of other stories like that. There's a lot of those stories in other parts of Mexico that I've heard from friends, and it's interesting that all these little stories happen. You know, all these little weird things happen in all the parts of the world. Like, you know, we're just talking about Arizona, but I don't know if you had ever heard of it, because I know you're big on.
I have not heard of like I've heard of the Black-Eyed Children.
Yeah, right.
But I had not heard of the Mexican version, if you will.
They there's
Yeah.
actually a series of comic books about the Black-Eyed Children inspired by the urban legend that took off on the internet. And I think it's like Aftershock Comics is like one of the indies, you know. And I picked it. I saw a trade, I thumbed through it, and it was very, very eerie. And the implication was that they were all in unison and they were all up to something, some greater purpose. And it was, you're like, are they aliens? Are they? I think they say they're older than mankind, whatever they're supposed to be. And you know, like, ooh.
Someone said that they're aborted children who are here to get their revenge. I mean, you know, I've heard a lot of different things about that. It's definitely something you don't want to ever experience. Like you hear a knock on the door. Can one of you guys explain what it is to the listeners? The Black-Eyed Children.
They're pretty much just child-looking entities, sometimes transparent, but their eyes are just completely black, and they vanish, they disappear. They are supposedly in areas where children have gone missing a lot of times. And sometimes people hear weird voices they like disembodied, almost like mysterious exorcist-like voices.
Right. And the thing is also that they fucking, like, the most common play. I've heard this story, which happened in a reservation where they don't really deal with the outside world much, but they all reported this in this reservation. A lot of cases where, you know, they had these kids knocking on the door, and as they looked and, like, you know, hey, what do you guys need help? Like, can we please come in? That was their request, and that's supposedly, from a lot of people who said they've experienced this, is they all want to come in. They want to use the phone. They want to ride. There's been cases where truckers are, you know, parked in the middle of nowhere sleeping, and the kids in the snow are knocking on their door and like, hey, mister, we need help. And as soon as they look at their eyes, like, oh yeah, no, they don't need help. Yeah, that's jeez, I don't know. You gotta pull out the shotgun on one of those, man. Whatever it is.
I don't think a shotgun will do you much good.
I know. That's just a joke, man. This dude, you got to do another episode with us, and share some more stories, man. I like this.
Hey, you got it.
Yeah, dude. Any last message you have for our listeners, where they could find you? They could, you know.
Yeah, let me plug myself and such.
Go ahead, buddy.
I am Sinister Intruder, the horror wave, horrorcore artist. I have 4 albums that you can pretty much stream wherever you can stream music, and there will always be more music coming out shortly. I am also an author under the name Joe Pangelina. I have 2 novels out, some short stories, and currently writing another book at this time. Another book is done and being edited. And I am also a streamer on Twitch where I play horror games and talk about horror movies and everything horror at Joe the Horror Guy or twitch.tv/Joe the Horror Guy. And you can find me in any one of those places.
Cool, man. And again, thank you for sharing your creepy stories with us.
Yes.
Some personal, some not personal, some old family stories. That's it's one of those things that like you don't. That's one of those stories you probably won't hear unless you come over for like a family barbecue at the Intruder family. I'm sure. But yeah, dude, thank you for doing this Halloween episode for us. And I any plans for Halloween?
I might do. There's a new Amnesia game coming out. I might do a stream all day where I just play that. For Halloween, I used to just have movie watching parties at my place, but nobody's coming over to my place during the old COVID-19.
Yes. Speaking of games, real quick, you said that Sad Jesus game is not real, right? That's one of those
Sad
creepy
Satan.
games. Sad Satan.
No, it's just an urban legend. That shit's not real.
Okay, all right. Okay, I was gonna ask you about that today, but I'm glad I got to ask that. I heard a lot of creepy things about it. Supposedly it's like the most scariest game ever, and I don't really know much about video games. Yeah, so then I just thought I'd ask you. I don't really want to go into a rabbit hole of people saying it's.
We'll do the rabbit holes next time.
Yes, you got a lot of those.
Absolutely.
Again, Joaquin, Phil, you guys got anything?
I'll say this much. It is going to be very, very. When I leave my car and I go inside my house, it's going to be fight or flight mode until I get upstairs. Either I'm going to run in fear or going to run screaming, "Run at me!" until I'm like safe in my room. So.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things about telling scary stories is afterwards you can fucking you can
You know what? Fucking, I'm just gonna stay on the phone right now with you guys until I get my fucking house.
Dude, fucking Wu-Tang that shit, man. And if you disappear, we'll know. We'll know what
exactly.
happened.
If I see a little kid with dark eyes, I'll be like, "Oh, snap!"
It's crazy. Before once he started telling the first story, I was sitting in the dark in my
Everything
room.
looks creepy out this motherfucking shit.
Yeah, I was sitting with the window, the curtains drawn, the door was open, and then as soon as he started telling the stories, that got uncomfortable. Like, okay, let me close. It's crazy what scary stories do to you, to the psyche.
For sure.
Yeah. So, again, man, thank you guys for listening. This is the final conclusion to our Halloween month of episodes, but it looks like this whole Sinister and stories with, what do you want to call it? We'll come up with a name right now. Stories with Sinister Intruder.
Sinister Stories, of course.
Sinister Stories with Sinister Intruder. Motherfuckers. We got some shit for you. Thank you again, sir, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We hope to see you in studio again. Maybe, share some stories that are scarier than anything that's happening in 2020.
Yeah, I'll bring lube next time we get in the studio.
Sounds good. That sounds fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, Phil. Take us out, Phil.
This has been the Voice Party. Have a happy Halloween, everybody. Try and do something fun since you can't go nowhere. We are out.
Out.